What is up, you guys? It's Twinlesstwin, and I am focusing in on beating the Boros Energy Menace. So we're playing versus my good friend X Whale, a very strong player, and he is going to help give us some testing matches versus Boros. So today we are trying something a little bit special, and you'll see it right away. We've got a Steam Vents. Don't get too excited. This is splashing specifically for some cards in our sideboard. We have Rough Tumble in the sideboard. So Rough Tumble, deal 2 damage to each creature without flying. The thing is it's very, very important to line up your sweeper on curve with the energy opponent. So 2 mana versus 3 mana makes a huge difference. And so that is the reason why I am playing Rough Tumble today. So I kept this starting hand, and I am pretty happy with it. My plan is to play turn 2 Psychic Frog. I'm going to start fetching an island and casting Preordain. So I decided to play Preordain for... Ooh, and both of these cards are... well, we won't have another blue card for the Fawn. But I guess casting it on even, like, hard casting it could be good. So I think topping it's fine. I'm playing Preordain now over Consider. One of the patrons made a great point, which was that between fetch lands that can get Surveils and also the Thought Scours, you have plenty of plays, even without having Consider. So play the more powerful cantrip. It lets you keep like one land hands more often, and it's just overall a stronger card. So yeah, I'm gonna be trying out Preordains. I actually plan to cut them in this matchup, so you won't get to see too much of them in our post-board games, but game 1 we'll be testing that out. So we'll be faced with an interesting decision on fawning to protect the frog or not. And I'm kind of actually just pretty happy that they didn't make us make that decision. Now we can probably go for an Oculus. I guess fetching a swamp here to avoid the potential Blood Moon. Okay, I will double Oculus. I mean, this seems pretty much unbeatable for the energy deck. Even without having Force of Negation up, I don't really see how they can win from this spot, but maybe they'll prove us wrong. Yeah, and they go ahead and scoop, which is very reasonable. That was very much at the top end of our draws, but I think even just like one Oculus with Fawn up was going to be pretty much a win. Alright, so we have to board these Rough Tumbles. And then my plan was to board these Consigns, this Trespasser, and this Surgical. So these 8 cards in. I like shaving some of these. I'm going to shave this Dismember because we're bringing in a Sweeper. Cling to Dust is kind of a bad cantrip, so when you actually have, like, real graveyard hate, like the Surgical and the extra Graveyard Trespasser, I think it's less necessary, and then the last cut is the Harbinger of the Seas. I think this is, like, a pretty reasonable plan. I really like Consign because you shut down their Static Prisons and their One Rings, which are 2 of the key cards that win the game. The downside is you can't, like, counterspell a Flage, but you can, like, stifle the Helix trigger. On the draw especially, I just think Counterspell is pretty poor, and a card I'm not really thrilled to see. in my opening hand. On the play counter spell is like much more reasonable, and maybe like we can shave a consign to bring back a counter spell because it trades 1-for-1 with their 2 drops, Ajani and I almost just clicked submit. That would have been really awkward. Ajani and Amped Raptor. I'm kind of tempted to keep this hand. I mean, having the double Oculus in hand is pretty much a mulligan to 6. And I guess I don't like the counterspell either. Yeah, okay. Talking myself into keeping this hand is probably pretty bad. I think a mulligan is going to serve me better. Okay, I lied. We'll go down to 5. Okay. Pretty mid 5 as well. We do have a Fatal Push, which might be helpful. And we definitely do need to Fatal Push this Ragavan. I think I'll get a Watery Grave here. Okay. Technically, they could have another Ragavan, so I'll pass. But I assume they attack first, and we are definitely going to want a Fatal Push. The fact that they fetched a Mountain is interesting. It definitely tells me they have more lands. But beyond that, not really sure. The Plains makes me a little afraid of Blood Moon. Maybe we should be playing a red Surveillant, because I would like to fetch that here. As this stands, I kind of feel like I need to fetch the Steam Vents tapped and hope to top deck the Rough Tumble, because otherwise I'm in a lot of trouble. So, I mean, if I Surveil in, mill, and then slam Oculus, maybe I'm actually just okay. Okay, I'll Surveil in. I talked myself into it. I can actually consign to memory this Amped Raptor trigger. That'll put me at 4, 5. Oh, I still need to mill this land, though. It's always going to be pretty tough on a mull to 5. But this hasn't been a particularly good mull to 5 either. They draw Giganta. That's probably a pretty positive outcome. Alright, I have a plan to, like, Bowmasters this Amped Raptor, and then double block Ajani. and I kind of expect them to shoot the bowmasters or something, but like then at least we get or not, and maybe we just get to okay, we have to pitch the Oculus here. Going to 2 does not feel great. Leaving the Bowmasters because it is the card we could unearth. Like, just dead to Flage at any point is not a good spot to be in. I think this is Flage. Maybe not, though. We're also dead to, like... Oh, are we dead to that? Yeah, we're dead to, like, Hasty, Raptor plus something. I mean, they have Jagantha. Maybe they have a One Ring, but they're stuck on 3 lands. Maybe they have... Like, Static Prison alone kills us immediately because they can jump the Guide of Souls. So I assume they don't have that. I'm kind of at a loss for what they have that they're tanking on. I mean, Amped Raptor seems like a card they could have in range. But then maybe they're also thinking about Galvanic Discharge. Not really sure. Okay, it is Amped Raptor. Hit the One Ring, hit the One Ring, hit the One Ring. Ocelot Pride. That's really scary. Yeah. Ocelot Pride? Oh, that's really bad. That's really bad. So they should not attack here. That'd be really bad for them. Okay, we are super mega dead to this Ocelot Pride going very wide. I mean, like, technically we had Glistening Deluge as a live draw there if we had that in our deck. So maybe that's a strike against... Let's bring 1 counterspell back in for 1 Consigned Memory. That could be a strike against Rough Tumble. We get to be on the play here. Our deck does already play plenty of fetch lands to support Oculus, so it's pretty easy to find the Steam Vents, but I could see replacing it under City Sewers with a Thundering Falls. That's how I built my Grixis mana bases in the past, and I found that to be pretty good. Plus, there is some awkwardness in, like, thought scouring yourself when you just have 1 red source, so having that second backup one does seem valuable. Okay, we don't need another fetch. We're pretty set up against, like, Blood Moon with having Pierce and Fawn in hand already. It'll actually be interesting, like... I think we're just always supposed to jam the Frog turn 2. Especially now. Okay, well, especially now. If they can't answer the first frog, I assume they're not going to be able to block, and they can't really answer the second frog, so attacking, getting our card, and then playing another frog seems pretty good. Unearth. I think that's something I'll just hold on to for now, because we can use that potentially mana efficient on a later turn. I guess I didn't need to shock the steam vents, but I mean, again, like, yeah, the Unearth could be valuable later. Mill a Johnny. Wow. I mean, that tells me they probably have an Ajani in hand. Or maybe they're just like, they really feel the pressure of these frogs and they know that they need to find a way out from underneath them. Because they are kind of on the back foot here. Like, playing a Johnny is a dangerous game against two frogs. I mean, actually, a Johnny doesn't seem horrible against these frogs. Unless I have a fatal push. Maybe Flage. Okay. I'll pretty happily discard 2 cards to whatever is targeted. Trespasser 1. And I think Sink into Stupor is number 2. So this lets them attack with the Ragavan, which is fine. I'll take the hit, and if they find Fatal Push, kind of a beat, but we do have the Pierce. I'm not willing to discard 2 more cards to that. I'm definitely attacking with both here. Maybe I should have tried to jump. Like, unearth the Trespasser, jump the 1-2 frog. Blocking on the 1-2 is actually pretty annoying here. I think I would discard a land to eat their thing. Discard a land, have Pierce up seems fine. Unearth this Trespasser to get their Flage. It's so good. It's so good. Like, what are they going to do? Attack this Ragavan into Trespasser? They're going to pay for ward? Okay, they had 4 lands in hand. But, like, I don't know. Their hand would have to be very good to beat this board state here. Because even if they, like, kind of answer the Trespasser, they're still looking down 2 frogs. So I feel very, very good about that. All right, let's play another match, and then we're going to debrief with X-Whale himself. So this time we're on the draw, which works out nicely. I think that's fair. And we have, I mean, I would consider this a pretty good hand. Like, it's a little weak to Ocelot Pride. Very strong against a lot of their other draws. Not very strong, but strong enough against a lot of their other draws. Oh. Maybe a connection issue on their part, or they joined with the wrong deck. Okay, so hold on 1 second.
Sure.
All right, we're gonna have a quick discussion with X-Whale. What's up, Will?
Hello.
What's
How's
up?
it going? What's up?
So you want to discuss this match now?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I think game one was pretty cut and dry, like a very strong draw from my side, and then
Yeah.
game two on a multi five was tricky for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a pretty good draw on the play, and you're on 5. I think I messed up that game. I kind of just like had a lapse in thought and just like forgot you had a bunch of pyroclasms in your deck, and I played my Amp Raptor for no reason. But then you didn't have a pyroclasm, so it was good.
Yeah, I did notice.
But
I did feel a little bit of like the cost of having pyroclasm in your deck. Like when it's not in your hand, there's a lot of evaluation you have to do of like when to fetch steam vents versus a surveil land. So I think for that reason, I'm actually gonna switch out one of the Undercity sewers for like a Thundering Falls, because I think that like the surveil lands are really important in this deck.
yeah,
And
I mean
like
that makes sense.
not being able to get red with a surveil land is pretty limiting. So I'm gonna do
Yeah,
that.
it seems like you're just gonna lead early on, just like you're gonna get Watery Grave first, and then you're gonna be at this point on like turn 3 or whatever, 4, and you really would like to surveil, but
Yeah, right.
you're cutting yourself off of drawing Pyroclasm, which
Yeah,
obviously is pretty problematic. But I guess then if you play the Thundering Falls, the cost of that is when you get your second surveil land, you're down a black source in play, but that's probably not a huge deal, right? You don't really your mana isn't that intensive or anything. I don't think like you don't have any double black pips, right?
no, no
So
double black.
it's just like yeah. So that actually is not really even. I mean, y- yeah, you don't even have that many cheap black spells. So you're not gonna need double black that often. So it's like the spot where the Thundering Falls. It's just if you draw it, I guess would be the. It's not and it's not black, but like if you have to fetch the second surveil land, like you're not actually going to be limited on black that often. So that's probably not a huge cost in that way. But if you draw
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
then you're not a black source that way. But you're going to be down a black source. Are you going to do that? No, you need the steam vents too. So then you're down, I guess, 2 black sources for the red splash. Which I mean, I don't know. I mean, what does
I
that put
went
you at?
down. I went down a sink into stupor, so that wasn't a black
Oh, okay,
source
okay,
to begin with.
okay,
Yeah, I try.
okay.
It's a tricky balancing act of having your mana base be as consistent as possible and as like least minimally painful as possible. Um, I do also have a Dark Slick Shores which I could cut, but like if I'm adding a shock land, I kind of like having that Dark Slick Shores as a painless dual land. I mean, Boros Energy
Yeah,
is an aggro deck, I think, pretty much at its core. The games can play out in a lot of
yeah,
different ways, but like your life total is often under pressure, and especially with
yeah.
something like having the sweepers post board, you have a lot of game even like when you fall behind on board, but you do sometimes need to use your life total a little bit as a resource. So that seems
Yeah,
important to me.
Dark Shores just seems pretty good to me. I guess this deck. Yeah, I guess this deck really wants a bunch of fetch lands, but you have 9.
Yeah, I
Like,
already have 9,
yeah,
so
yeah. So I don't
um,
know, but yeah, it's probably fine.
I'm curious from the energy side, like how things felt. It was just the first game, but did anything kind of jump out
Uh,
to you as like alarming or
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So when you played Frog, um, if I didn't have the prison, which was both times, I didn't really know what I was supposed to do because I had a spot in game 1 where I could attack with my Ragavan, and if you like, then the obvious play for you is like block and then discard a card and then eat my guy, and then your guy has 1 toughness, and then I had 1 galvanic discharge in my hand, so now I can use it on the frog, but you would go down to 1 or 2 cards in your hand, I forget, and it would be, obviously it would be the best card in your hand, which I would guess would be counterspell in that spot. If I had to pick, but if you don't have
yeah,
counterspell, then maybe it's like Oculus or something, because then your graveyard is full. So it's like probably one of those two, and if it's not, it's like I don't know, maybe Preordain or something. I don't know. And then that spot is just really bad for me. Like I like the
right,
damage based stuff. Really, I mean, this is kind of old news at this point, I guess, because Frog's been out since like June, I think.
Yeah.
So like, but if you don't have the static prison to meet, like it did not really seem like I had a great way to navigate that game when there's a frog in play. Like
Yeah.
if I didn't have static prison, so probably good to maybe bias yourself towards keeping more hands with turn 2 frog against energy or something like that. I mean, maybe if they have 4 static prison, that kind of changes. So it definitely something to be flexible on. But I just had 2 static prisons in the list that I copied from the showcase. So
Yeah, so that's good news for us frog players. The showcase winning energy list only had 2 static prison. I also kind of question that decision on their part, but if people are copying that list, I think that it only ends up being kind of favorable for us on the blue black side.
yeah, just to be like totally clear, I don't have a strong opinion on if it's good or bad to play
Yeah, no, of
your static
course.
prison. But if you're gonna play against frog, I would want 4 prisons in my deck because
Yeah,
that's
I agree.
definitely the best way to answer Oculus or frog. And if you don't have it for the frog, then it's kind of a disaster, I think. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, cool. Did you? Oh, my monitor just fell asleep. Sorry.
oh,
Did you want to play another match?
uh, so actually the reason that I accepted that challenge was because I was returning my cards to mana traders and I just saw the pop up, and I just like I just hit the yes. You know what I mean?
Oh.
I was just like I just like wasn't even like I was just like autopiloting through it. I'm gonna go to bed here pretty soon,
All right.
but thank you
That'll
for
wrap
playing
up
that
the
match. Yeah,
video
that's fun.
then. Thank you guys for watching.
Yeah.